Welcome to episode 120 of Nobody Special.
In this episode, we talk about abolishing the police.
The Gospel Outpost presents Nobody Special. Hey everyone, welcome to Nobody Special, two Nobodies talking about the somebody who matters. I'm Danny, the host and Bible boy of Nobody Special.
And I'm Caleb, you're the host of Nobody Special. This is a podcast where two generations of people talk about God, pop culture, politics, and everything in between, all while not taking any of it too seriously.
Caleb, Netflix update.
Okay.
Tiger King has been dethroned as the number one streamed thing.
Really?
Guess what it is now?
What?
Minions.
Minions?
I literally just read this before starting.
Minions,
I think.
Why?
I want that article to be false.
I
didn't have
Minions.
time to fact check it.
I hate Minions.
But
I hope that's some
man.
sort of Onion article or something.
A variety.
Basically.
So I actually thought Avatar was doing pretty good. Airbender I thought was doing good, but apparently it's not doing Minion good.
I've never heard anyone talk about Minions from when did that come out? Since it came out, and it was hush hush then because nobody wanted to admit they just watched Minions.
They actually the movie, it was about them. They're attracted to the most evil person on the planet, and so to get around some things during the 40s and 50s, they were stuck on the moon. Because how do you explain who the minions would have gone to, say, in 1945?
That's hilarious.
That would have been like, ugh, ew, weird, ooh, weird. So
yeah.
just stuck on the moon during this period. We're like,
it is kind of a weird concept for a movie. Like,
yeah.
They want to work for evil people, and it's
right.
Even Despicable Me is a movie about an evil person,
right?
And
I mean, but he at least becomes.
Yes,
good.
He becomes good.
I don't know. It's been weird. I don't know. Everything's weird. The Minions, whatever. It's 2020, people. It's the Calvin Ball of years. We're just making it up as we go along at this point. So there's been so many weird things. I don't turn on the news that much anymore because I'm exhausted watching it. I've
never turned on the news.
Yeah, but we do have a couple of things to talk about today that we're. I was gonna say excited to talk about. I'm not really sure that's the right word.
No.
There've been current events happening all around the country, even all around the globe too, and there's an aspect of it that we're interested in addressing. We're not. I don't think we're gonna get into the BLM and all that. So go 2 podcasts before and check that out and see both of our thoughts on that if that's the thing that you're interested in. Episode 118. But Caleb, there's been a specific call. Sorry, I'm skipping banter. Do you have anything you want to banter or talk about the Minions more?
Nah.
What if? It can make the noises the Minions make.
Please don't.
Okay, good. So there's been this constant growing call to action that's getting some ground, some traction, and that kind of stuff to abolish or defund the or the cops of essentially all 50 states. People are calling to have the police departments disband under a whole different bunch of causes and everything behind it, and it's creating a lot of tension across the board. And it's, I don't know, it's getting a bit testy out there. I don't really know how else to put that.
Yeah,
it's getting rough.
It's been a growing concept since George Floyd, and and all that stuff has sprouted a lot of different ideas. And to be honest, it's been really interesting to try and hear people's different solutions to what they think the problem is.
Right.
And I think it's been interesting, and this has been one. Although my my perspective on this is just some background to the way my brain works. I believe in logic, and logic, breaking it down simply, there are universals and particulars. And I bring this up a lot on this podcast because it just applies to everything. And I cannot stand, I don't think a lot of people are claiming this, but I cannot stand people saying all police are bad. That just annoys me because I know like 6 different police officers and all of them are fantastic human beings.
Right.
And that's not to say that
right.
there aren't some, because I know for a fact there are bad cops out there.
Yeah.
But that's where almost everything in life, I feel like, deals with particulars.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the no good Scotsman fallacy or something?
What is that?
I hope I'm not just making up that term.
Sounds interesting.
Hold on. No, it's a fallacy that all blank are blank because one person is blank. No good. Yeah, hold on. No good Scotsman. I really want to.
No good Scotsman.
Figure out if I need to.
Bad Scotsmans are. I don't know.
To delete this whole section. Or
is it a syllogism?
Appeal to purity is an informal fallacy that one attempts to protect a universal generalization out of counter examples. So, okay, so not 100% that, but it's this idea that, well, there's a bad person here, therefore the entire group that they're a part of is bad. And to be clear, even the kind of the friends that both of us do carry in it as cops, as actually I have a guy I know at the DA's office, all up and down the board. They've all agreed that there are bad cops, and they do everything in their power to discredit them and get them out of a job because they understand the amount of trust that this office needs to carry, and that a bad cop can, to be honest, really screw up a lot of things to a whole bunch of great cops.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the bigger thing is most of the time they are doing great, but these cases that I do think at a minimum do carry weight, they're making it very difficult to be a good cop because of the constant animosity. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. And through all of this, I mean, I feel like that is kind of the basis on what this kind of proposition has sprouted out of is, there are bad cops. And not everyone, don't get me wrong, not everyone claims, most people don't claim that all cops are bad.
Right.
I've heard very few people say that. But it is under the... what?
You want to pop on my Facebook feed for a little bit? Like, do you want to...
No, not really. But, like...
Dear goodness.
Here's my issue with the whole thing. I mean, to put it simply, I just think it's dumb. I don't think that it is productive. I think it's counterproductive. I don't think that it is good. And we're going to get into everything.
Yeah.
I think that it is going to cause more problems than it will. Yeah. The thing about abolishing the police is that the flip side of it that a lot of people are offering is, and you brought this up when we were talking earlier, is that it's basically just socialism.
Yeah.
It is socialism.
So part of the thing they're saying, just to give a brief kind of insight in case you're for some reason under whatever rock that you're under, is they're claiming the cops are doing too many things that could be best done by other people. If a person is drinking and driving, then instead of taking them to jail, you call them an Uber to get them home. If they don't carry or if they aren't able to go home, instead of bringing them to jail, you bring them to a house and take care of them. Okay, if they're going through a crisis, you call in a worker to be able to talk them down. Actually, another I saw is that if there's a person breaking into cars in a neighborhood, you bring in a therapist to de-escalate the situation and provide them the necessary counseling and health care that they need to cope. So that's all right.
Yeah, I mean,
so again, in these topics, I feel like it's important to be very clear about the things I'm saying and the things I'm not saying. Getting people help is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to be clear about that. Getting people help is a good thing. All these answers, though, are an amount of state and federal control that only exists in a communist or socialist type of setting that does not work.
Right.
If I'm the government and instead of if a man that doesn't have a home commits a crime and instead of taking him to jail, I take him to a home, I have to have a home I can just give him, and I'm just going to give him a home. That's straight up socialism.
Yeah,
and no one has ever talked about the good nature of government housing. And I say that as someone who I think was in government housing for a bit. It's not great.
Right.
So to just have this country-wide cache of homes to just kind of distribute to people, it gives the impression that it is the government's job to provide a person with a home that is adequate.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of there's many different solutions out there. This is just touching the surface. And let me just state, before we get even more into it, I think that it is great that we are trying to find solutions to the problem that is there.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, by disagreeing with this, I don't want to, by any means, just think that, just be unloving, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because I think that it is great that people are actually putting their heads together and trying to create something.
Absolutely.
That is awesome.
Absolutely. I was actually talking to a person this morning. There's an elder at the church. He's a police officer. And a guy straight up kind of mentioned, oh, no, there are problems that need to be addressed. But the idea of just swinging the pendulum to abolishing the police is dangerous because of the amount of innocent people that are going to die or be victims because they have no place to turn.
Exactly.
Is so incredibly high that to just go to abolish the police is dangerous and very, very it's dangerous and stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a good point, because that's what I've thought about a lot. It is a lot of people's worst nightmare for the police to go away.
Right.
Think about people who are victims of domestic abuse, any form of abuse.
Right. Right.
Sexual abuse, all that stuff. It is there's really not a lot that can be done sometimes without a force that can stop it. No matter, I don't see a world where if someone is holding 30 people hostage, threatening to, set off this bomb, that, some therapist is going to de-escalate that situation. And I understand that's probably one of the worst picks out of the different solutions out there.
Sure, that's kind of an extreme example, but
yes.
But it is a thing that has happened. I mean, that's why we have SWAT teams for that type of situation, is because it does occur enough times that they need a team to be able to do this kind of thing, and the goal isn't kill the bad guy, but to save the innocent. And part of that's an issue of the starting perspective of, are they just trying to kill bad guys or protect the innocent? Because if it is just kill bad guys, that's not good. That isn't a good starting place.
Yeah.
If it is kill the wolf in order to protect the kind of the sheep, then Absolutely. I mean, it's a different perspective, and it's a matter of the heart. And I'm positive there are people that got into it on bad motivations. But to be honest, I think most people get into it because of this internal drive to protect the innocent. I'd say most.
Yeah.
I've been talking to people that they said becoming a police officer is a calling in the same kind of a manner that becoming a pastor is a calling, because it's dangerous. It's being intentional about if a person opens fire on a crowd, you run towards it, not away.
Right.
And that's why in the community, those cops that turn and tuck tail are mocked by other cops, because that's why they signed up for this job, is to protect the innocent and to be brave during the times that people are scared.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I cut off your point, and I apologize for that.
I mean, no, that's good.
Yeah.
I think that is a lot of where you find good cops' motivation. It's not to kill black people.
Right.
It's not to kill white people.
Right.
It's to protect.
Right.
And it is sad. I mean, and a lot of this, it obviously sprouts off of, police brutality within black groups, and that's not great. And no one's ever said that's great, besides there are people, obviously, but
and we almost universally agree the people who say that are awful human beings.
Yes.
I mean, that's the part I honestly have trouble, is that most of the people agree that guy stinks, that the KKK stinks, that I've never been pro the KKK. They are a racist group of people that I'm okay claiming, or that actually I think even they're okay if I claim that. They're like, yep, we are. They are the backbone of bigotry, that needs to be called out to the evil that it is. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And I am not a minority opinion on that one. I'd say most people do agree that the KKK is very, very racist and horrible.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that, it's just, it's hard to see, the distrust. I understand distrust with police, but understanding that they're almost 9 times out of 10 there to protect you. And you look at the protests, and people are upset with police using crowd deterrence, when they're kind of forgetting, scale out a little bit. Why are they doing this? They're trying to keep perimeters. They're trying to do all these things because you have to get emergency vehicles into places. You have to do all these different things, and if there's a huge crowd somewhere, you can't do that. I mean, that's literally what happened with the kid who was burned alive in a building. Yeah. And so I understand this kind of distrust with the police, especially with everything going on.
Oh yeah.
But you kind of have to understand their motivation as well. Like we said, most of the time it is to protect you and protect potential things from happening.
Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of that comes from. I'm kind of getting off topic there.
No, it's good though.
But I wanted to bring up, I've been watching the Jeffrey Epstein thing on Netflix. And
how we tied these two topics,
I'll tie it together.
We really wanted to say it again. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
No, he definitely didn't. I just finished it today, and thinking about abolishing the police or defunding the police, and then looking at this case specifically,
right?
It just boggles my mind the complexity
Mm-hmm.
of the things and
Yeah.
the variety of things that
Yeah.
police deal with.
Right.
And saying to get rid of them, I just feel like is
Right.
just I can't envision how you could think that.
Mm-hmm.
How you could think, because getting into this case, you're talking about hundreds of underage girls
Yes.
that were molested,
Right.
raped, sexually abused by him.
Gosh, I forgot
just
there was
straight
an
up abuse.
island he had for a minute. It just
Yes.
Sorry, it just occurred to me again. This man had an island for underage sex with children.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Oh, yeah. Like it was so creepy.
Yeah.
The pictures of that place are like, this is exactly the kind of place that you would think this would happen.
And it's crazy. Like in the Palm Coast, Palm Coast Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically the people who started the investigation
Mm-hmm.
and pushed and pushed and pushed for it to be followed through with.
Right.
Even after, there was some very obvious play within the government with Acosta and him being able to get out, I think it was like in 18 months, the first time he was in Correctional Institute, even though...
I don't know this part.
You didn't know that part?
You just spoiling Netflix for me every week. There you go.
But like, so basically they were able to
Mm-hmm.
find enough of people to speak up about it, even though, Epstein had threatened and done everything, because he is a powerful person because of his money.
Absolutely.
And he was able to get out within 18 months. It was in a correctional institute, and he had work leave, so he was basically gone, like, I think 10 hours or like 12 hours of the day, and had a deputy that he like paid basically to like not watch him, even though he was like in his house,
Right.
going to all these different
Right.
places. So basically, like, didn't work. But like, they continued to keep on pushing to get justice for these women.
Yeah.
And eventually he was killed before the actual trial hearing. But
Right.
like, he was going to end up in bars, like, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
And that, to me, like, there were so many things.
He was about to name names too. I mean, that was part of it. I was following that case pretty heavily. He was about to name names, like, okay, here's
Yeah.
where the money is. Here's who gave it to me.
Yep.
Wait, I'm suddenly feeling suicidal. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
okay,
like,
buddy.
And the point I bring this up is I would love for you to go watch this. It's truly disgusting. He is a disgusting human being. But it brings up what the police deal with.
Right.
And what the FBI deal with.
Right.
And the complexity of it all.
Yeah.
I don't see a world where this could happen
Yeah.
in a socialism or
Right.
socialistic, is that a word?
Socialistic, yeah.
Socialistic format.
So,
like,
I mean, this is Jeffrey Epstein is kind of a big example. He's not the common, but the type of stuff they go through every day. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that they're just trying to keep people protected and not getting in a car accidents and that kind of stuff, and they're just being screamed at, they're being cursed at, they're being punched, they're being hit, they're needing to do all these things that in any other case we would go nuts, and they're keeping composure, they're staying calm because they understand that they're under the microscope at any time. But still, even through all the protests for the past decade and a half, when stuff starts occurring, even though there have been buildings burning down and that type of stuff, they've still cried out, somebody call the police. And I'm personally concerned that if there is this kind of a push to abolish or to defund, to get them out, that they're being made out to be the enemy, that they aren't, and that there's going to come a point that they're going to just quit. This is actually a problem going through Georgia, is that a fair amount of their of the officers are calling out and saying, hey, people are asking to have no cops. Okay, well then here it is. I'm not coming in today, and tomorrow ain't going great either. And I think they'll be able to contain it maybe a day or two, but at a point, as the accountability comes down, it's going to be an open time of crime that is going to go unchecked. I mean, unaccountable behavior doesn't produce any kind of good in a person. And I think at its core, this is a problem of people underestimating the power and the effect of actual kind of garbage and sin that all of us face. I mean, I've even gotten in arguments on the internet, about this thing of people claiming, hey, don't call this an issue of sin. Why not? If it like it is 100% this, or I had a person say, don't spiritual or don't turn this into a spiritual thing, then it's strange. And this, it was in a Christian group, and I was trying to say, like, well, what else is this? If I understand the effect of this stems out of the power of sin, then I'm able to tackle it on a gospel perspective. Because am I trying to say that everything going on isn't the product of sin? It's all the product of sin. Yeah. And I can't carry this, well, it's not the problem of sin, it's a deeper thing. There isn't a deeper issue. This is the first in biggest issue that man faces, is our problem with sin. And until it's tackled on that perspective, it isn't going to heal. Because the other end of it is people, they carry a gospel that is too small by trying to say, well, no, don't bring God into this. This is a different thing. Then your God, and I'm quoting Christians here, and that's problematic, because your God is too small at that point. If God cannot bring the hearts of mankind to wholeness, then your God is too small, and the gospel is the power of God to save. It is the bringing of man out of garbage and filth into right standing with God.
Right.
And to just claim, well, no, don't turn it into a God thing. You have to. Every positive standing action of civil rights, it's been backed by a pastor trying to get people to come closer to God.
Yeah, I think that it's obvious. I mean, if you're a Christian and you don't think it's a sin issue, then
what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, it's very obviously it's an issue. I mean, we know that sin is in all of us, and I think that, yeah, I can't imagine not thinking that, and knowing that only God can redeem this. I mean, it's just true. I don't see any other way, and honestly, I'm not smart enough to think of solutions, and I can sit here and critique, but honestly, I'm not much better myself. But like, and I think that, yeah, it's very obviously a sin issue, and not having a way to manage that.
Right.
I just can't imagine. I would honestly love to see how it would work out. Like, I think it would be super interesting to try an experiment in different like towns on how it would go over, and have other police forces ready to step in if anything goes astray. Just to see what. So
like, theoretically. All right, so first of all, and this might be getting a little more controversial than we might have wanted to, but so first of all, on a macro scale, this has not been tested in the history of mankind, because that's just called anarchy, because there's no order, and anarchy isn't a system that can actually stay because it's called anarchy. And the moment it becomes a system, it stops being anarchy. Anarchy and chaos are interchangeable. So if there isn't accountability, then there's no order. If there isn't order, then it's anarchy or chaos. Yeah. So on top of that, there are small scales that this did occur, that there are areas cops are scared to go because of the animosity towards them, and this idea that the people in there, they govern themselves. And these tend to be Chicago, Detroit, and all the places that have high murder. I mean, where there's a ton of a murder all the time, are in places that there is a weak police presence because there's no accountability. Even the Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. I'm not calling.
Can we just keep it going? It's honestly just very entertaining. It's very cute, and I love it.
I think it's only funny to me because I'm tired of crying. I'll just be honest, but I mean, even the first two things they did after they said no, this is our own place. The first two things they did. The first thing they did is they built a wall.
God.
They built a wall.
Yeah.
And then they got armed guards that are there for their safety. That's just another word for police.
Yep.
I mean, that's just another term.
And I think that's what it's
going
to turn into. Like, if we do change the formatting of police, no matter what, I think we'll eventually end up in police again. It might be better.
We'll call them something else.
Like, it could be better. Like, there are things that, could be better.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that we have to take into account, like, the in-between. Like, what do you do? That's what I'm kind of boggled on is this thing has to be ready to roll the next day.
Right.
Like, ready to go.
Right.
And if it's not, then I don't see... Like, these things take years to develop.
Right.
And I think that it's a very interesting idea, but, like, I just can't see a world where that happens.
Right.
And I just don't think that it would be...
Right, where sin
I don't
goes
think it'd be
unaccountable.
Good. Yeah, I just can't see that being good. Like I said, you look at like these hundreds of women that are living in hurt, that are changed for the rest of their life due to this really messed up guy. And that went under nobody saw that for years. Like, years. What do you do with that? I mean, how do you deal with that? It's going to keep on going.
The other option that is if police force goes away, a couple things happen. One, crime goes up, but then two, so does being a vigilante, and taking justice into our own hands. And the problem of that is that stops being a justice because it isn't impartial. That was the entire case of Ahmaud Arbery. That people took quote-unquote justice into their own hands based on them being judge, jury, and executioner, and killed an innocent person going on a jog, and then had the audacity to cover it up and do a whole bunch of garbage. Then now a GBI is kind of digging through their cases to say, like, hey guys, what the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, they're because they tried to take it into their own hands, and that's a dangerous place to be, because then I'm the arbiter of justice,
right? And
it's based on how I feel at that point, and we don't want that, especially not for me.
And I wanna propose my plan. This is what I think would be best. Okay. I could sound super dumb, but number one, I hear the defunding the police and all this stuff. But it takes money to make better cops, to educate them better,
right?
To just have better cops. When you need training on anti-racism things, you have to pay for a trainer to come in. When you need
a good trainer, not
a good trainer.
I mean, not like the
exactly like
we're all colorblind here. Like, that's never been good training.
Does it? And it takes money to. And time to sort out who these bad cops are.
Right.
I think that it would be great for more money to be given in order, like an initiation to thoroughly educate, investigate,
right,
every, police department. I think that would be very interesting thing to do.
So I mean, just to be fair, most police departments have that. That's why if an officer discharges their gun, they're placed on
exactly, yeah,
administrative timeout,
right?
Essentially, because they have to go through and say, is this a justified use of force? I mean, that in every case I've kind of pulled up in the news and that kind of stuff, they said officer discharged his gun, killed a person, therefore they're on administrative duty while it's watched in order to be positive that they aren't out of their standards. So
yeah, and I think step 2 would be you want better cops in those communities. Then people within those communities should step up and be a cop. I think that is a great way to change it, is from the inside out. And then I think this is very just plain, but I think giving more money is the option. It is the best option, because it allows them to be more flexible, to have better trainers,
right?
To be...
You get what you pay for.
Exactly. You get better cops.
Yeah.
You can pay better cops better.
Yeah.
You can reward them for being a good cop.
Right.
And then kind of outside of within the police department, I think we need to keep on speaking up like we are now. When we see injustice, we say something.
Right.
Because we know that it brings change.
Right.
We know that now. So with the, citizens and the police departments collaborating together, I think that's how it has to go. Because sin, like you brought up earlier, sin is a sin issue, and that is within police departments. That is in citizens. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. I don't think there's ever going to be a case of that. But I think
not on
that
this side of eternity. No.
I think that unity is more powerful than completely abolishing the police.
Right.
That is honestly
right.
the only way that I see this going down.
Right.
In a positive manner.
Right. And I mean, that's kind of the thing that you brought up about being in the community. There is a community aspect to being a police officer that's important. That's why all those good stories of those great cops are them. I mean, personally, I enjoy those stories that are we allowed to say a Karen? Sorry, are we allowed to say that? A Karen, but not you, mom, Karen, not you.
Mom might smack you.
You're the best. When a person calls the cops on kids playing basketball at like 2 p.m. or something, and the cops get there and go like, okay, so here's the this is how it's going down. First one to 21, it's 2-on-2. Pass me the ball, check, and we're in. Yeah. Like, those are the best stories ever, because it teaches them, cops aren't people to be feared. They're a part of the community. They actually care. Or that cop, it's probably the coolest picture ever. This cop, I think it's in New York. He every day brings snacks to this group of kids, and just he chills, eats chips, and talks to these kids that just are needing to be out playing, because that's the only thing they have going on, and they adore him, and it's fantastic. I think there's so many of those opportunities that both ends, they need to be able to be a part of the community, to go just talk to them, because both ends are just people, and both ends are hurting. Especially today, both ends are in pain.
I think the best way to view, or the best thing that I've seen is, I believe it was the San Diego Police Department. There was, I don't know what his level of ranking, obviously he was above all of the, he was speaking to the new recruits that were in class, and he was just going at it. I mean, he was like fire and brimstone preacher, except within like cop world.
Right.
And he was really just telling him that, like, you were there to protect your community and to build relationships with your community. And that's what they need right now. And I think that is what it is. And both sides have to give. Like, once the police department gives, if we're just still yelling at them, that's not going to work. We need to understand that this is a both sides.
They are also people, They are just
doing their jobs.
Right.
And they're putting their life on the
Yeah.
line, and that's super important.
Yeah.
And I think
It's
that
this-
there, and once again, just because I feel like we need to say it, like, there is still police brutality and stuff, but
Sure.
I think that with better training, with better
Mm-hmm.
cops, and that can really only be done with more money, that can be solved.
Sure. Now, I mean, you did bring up a great point too about being in the community, and also I don't think anybody is trying to say there are no cases of police brutality.
Right. Yeah.
George Floyd taught us that's not the case, and to everybody that tried to say, yeah, but he was a criminal, he was forging checks. I don't care.
And you don't
That's
shoot
not-
people who are, or you don't kill people who are guilty anyways. That's not how that works.
Yeah, I
Unless
mean,
they're actively shooting at you, you don't
Yeah.
shoot at them or try and harm them.
or put a knee on their neck for 9 minutes for check forgery. That I've said it before, say it again.
Yeah.
Police brutality, clearly,
Yep.
and everyone agreed, and I'm very okay with that. But that everybody agreed. Sorry, I'm okay with that. But this idea of being in the community, this is the thing Christ did, and I think in answer to this, a fair amount of Christians are also getting scared and just thinking, I need to go to hide in the mountains because it's going to be kind of a safer thing there. But in John 1:14 it tells us, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. And this is the thing Jesus did on our behalf in order to bring us to him.
Yeah.
This is the coming into the community to people that even to a certain extent opposed him in order to bring them to being whole.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes very important in our approaching this. This isn't the time that Christians need to back out, but is the time to get plugged in, to be a part of the community, and to do that in grace and truth. I think those are, it's this odd part where I think those two concepts are being pitted against each other.
Right.
And in actuality, those two, they function best as twins. Grace and truth function best as twins. That if I give a difficult truth that has no grace in it, then I'm not actually, or I'm not communicating truth because you're not able to hear it. But
Right.
if I'm just giving grace and I'm not keeping people accountable, then there isn't any truth to that. And God is a God of truth and of order. And if it's just grace, but no truth, then I'm still being disobedient to God.
Yeah.
And I think those two things in our modern context are being pitted against each other, and they need to come together. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. Is that okay? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
So, the Summit Church, they had a sermon with, and I was trying to find this third person, and I apologize because I could not find her name. She was brilliant, and I just can't think of her name. But it was J.D. Greer, the pastor there. They're bringing on a new pastoral staff person named Brian. My brain does not like to say that last name. I'm
Brian
sorry.
Loritz.
Yes, everyone go pick up this book. I'm starting it now. It's fantastic.
Brian Loritz.
Yes, he spoke at 11:22.
Okay, I
yes.
was like, that sounds really familiar.
and is fantastic.
Yeah.
And the other girl, I forget her name, and I'm so sorry, and I couldn't Google it fast enough. But they're talking about that to the black community. They're engaging this on an emotional end because that's their identity and their community, that if it's done to one of them, it's done to all of them. And I'm not claiming they're being too emotional or any of that. No, don't go there, because they are hurting and bypassing a few of the kind of kind of statistical things, but they are hurting.
Right.
And the other end is just stuck in communicating a factual truth. Like, well, actually, how many hearts have ever been
Exactly. Yeah.
brought to Christ by going, oh, actually, and I think, to be fair, one end needs to engage with more grace, and the other end needs to engage with more truth. And if they could come together and have an honest conversation about the problem and the answer that is both truthful and graceful,
Yep.
then all of us are going to be able to be Christ in that kind of a moment, to be the gospel to the people that they need it. But to do that, both ends, they have to bring their parts as truth and grace together as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and that's what I've seen the most within the Christian community is people who just want to be smart and be like, oh, well, statistically this, statistically that.
Right.
No, like Christ calls us to be there and to mourn with people.
Right.
And so lamenting is what we need to do.
Right.
Because other than that, like, you're just being annoying and loud, and nobody cares.
Right.
You're not being heard because it's unloving and it's not the right way to view it.
Right. I mean, even going to the tomb, Jesus going to the tomb of his best friend, Lazarus, who had been dead for over 3 days. And in Jewish culture, there's like dead, and then there's like super dead, and he was super dead. That's a really horrible mischaracterization of that.
Yeah.
But you get it. So he's very dead, and Jesus, he already knows what he can do and what he's going to do. I don't think Jesus is kind of making it up on the spot there. He knows all of this and still chooses to weep with Mary, knowing full well that this isn't the end. He still chooses to do that because it's important to do that. And then speaks truth and says, Lazarus, come out of there. He still speaks truth, but does comfort in their mourning, and joins them in there, and then speaks truth in their mourning.
Yeah.
It's almost a rite of passage, or an earned access to be able to speak truth by first being present in their weeping, maybe not agreeing, but being present, and then to be able to speak truth out of that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, like, the world is not going to agree with that. So, and I think that
super not.
I often lean straight towards to being like, oh, I want to be, viewed as a good human being in the world's eyes first. Like, that's honestly where my brain goes. But, like, kind of acknowledging that you're going to get slack for what you're doing. And you just gotta deal with it. I mean, and it sucks, but, like,
there's a weird part. I know, a fair amount of the pastors that I think are great people, they're getting attacked on both sides. And the more I thought about that, I mean, of the politics spectrum, the more I've thought about that, the more I'm okay with that. It's like, preach truth in a manner that angers conservatives and the liberals.
Yep.
And
that's what the Bible is.
Yeah. It's like, preach both, because both should be offended at true gospel if they aren't 100% following Christ.
And I think the politics are tied in way too much with the Bible.
Right.
The Bible is independent. It believes what I
Right.
believe what I can't talk. I believe what the Bible says.
Right.
And that's why I'm personally, I'd say, more independent, because it doesn't choose sides.
Right.
It's some things are over here, some things are over there. You gotta
Sure.
and thinking about it in a political manner is just dumb.
Right.
It's stupid.
Right.
Stop. You know?
Right.
Like, believe what the Bible believes, and that's what you should go off of.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's going to, both sides are gonna bite at you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the American gospel is a huge thing nowadays, and people will soon start to realize that they don't believe the Bible. They believe America.
They only
and the
believe in the
Bible.
parts that speak of blessing to them.
Yes.
And that is the great heresy of the Western Church, is that I can cherry pick the Bible to make it say the thing I want to say, or that I am that God's thoughts mirror mine, when in actuality it's my thoughts that they need to mirror God's. I mean,
Yeah.
but this is the problem in the whole kind of a defund the cops too, is taking the accountability out also isn't scriptural either. You know, it is a tragedy anytime anybody dies, innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
It is an absolute 100% tragedy in every case, every time. But there are consequences to actions that they need to be held to.
Yeah.
And when I thought that was going to be a controversial sentence I would ever say, is that people need to be held accountable to their actions. Wow, didn't know that would be as controversial. But in Proverbs 29:15, it tells us the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. And this is talking about that the rod and reproof are the discipline and being nudged back into truth and discipline and that kind of thing, and out of that comes a wisdom. But if there aren't any consequences, or if a person is just like, I'm going to leave you to your own, then actually it doesn't talk about it bringing any kind of the shame to the child, but to the mother, to the parents that are intended to be the people raising the child. If they're just, well, I'm just going to step back and see what they do, then that is shameful. To do that to a person causes them emotional difficulty. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as a spoiled child.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
that's basically what it's saying.
Yeah, spoiled children bring shame, but there is wisdom in disciplining and teaching and training, and in a broader kind of a scale, the cops, when done right, bring a rod. I mean, they are a necessary part of a modern kind of society. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oy.
It's crazy stuff. But I mean,
So-
it's... I do it, like, once again, I mean, I think it's great. Like, if you're on the other side of what we're saying, I mean, I think that it is awesome that we are trying.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And that's something that
Absolutely.
I feel like isn't being said a lot through this
Right.
whole thing.
Right.
But, like, we are trying to find what is best, and we may disagree along the way,
Right.
but that's part of any, process of problem solving with a collective group of people. You're
Right.
going to disagree, but I feel like eventually maybe we'll land on something that is better. And I mean, I stated what I thought is better, but like, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, those are good points too. The other stuff that you brought up, and to be fair, there's a couple I quasi disagree on, but overall, this is the conversation that needs to occur, and then out of this, action needs to be born.
Right.
And I think many people are skipping straight to no, there has to be action at this point, but until truth and grace actually come kind of together, we can't even agree on the problem.
Yep.
And until the problem is agreed upon, I can't actually have an answer to it if both of us are trying to solve two different problems. And too many people aren't spending enough time listening to the other, but are just being quick to speak and quick to get angry. And those are two things biblically that are detrimental to productivity, but also as a person. It is our job to be slow to anger and slow to speak. And that gives everybody an opportunity to speak and be heard and to talk together as people, all created in the image of God, instead of just going, oh no, it's either this or nothing else. And that's the problem on the abolish the cops thing, is that it's that or nothing else. And they aren't, and I don't even think it's all of them doing that. It's a small but loud amount of them that they're unwilling to budge until there are no more police. And that is so dangerous, and they're guiding this by being loud.
Yeah, and I think that being thorough and intentional with what you say and what you believe is important. And like, I just don't see that in a lot of people. A lot of people who believe that, you know, a lot of things I see online is just, you know, this is why the police are bad. Let's abolish them.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
No solution. No anything. It's just like this.
Right.
Look at me. I pointed out all the bad things in the police. Yeah, there's gonna be bad things on both sides.
I
Dummy.
burnt a cake. Throw out my oven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be easy to poke holes in anything.
Right.
You know, like there's stuff that in your life that you could find that's bad, in my life that you could find that's bad. Like, in anything, you can find something that is bad.
There should be no Caleb, because you did a bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are you supposed to do with that? It doesn't get anywhere. You know, like, you need a solution, and
with grace,
truth
and grace.
And so, like, that I don't. And once again, it's due to me learning, like, logic and debate and all these things, where I'm very picky on, like, I'm not gonna listen to that unless you have some sort of a solution. Right. It's easy to point out problems, but it's useless unless you have a solution.
See, well,
that's what I find, at least. I mean, like, of course it varies in situations, but
and it's a bit off topic, but I've been doing this all night, so who cares? There are times I've been able to go, there's a problem there, and I don't know how to fix it. On all things music, in even audio engineering and that kind of stuff, I've been able to go, there's a problem here. I am unable to pitch an answer because I don't know enough. Right. But I'm open to dialoguing about that.
Exactly. It's important to your tone and your attitude in presenting that. Yeah. You know, if you're like, there's a problem there, you know, that's a problem. Right. Like, there's a difference between that and, this is a problem. What can we do to fix it? You know, like, filmmaking is a good example, because you run into problems. Probably, I want to say at least 10 problems on set. Like every shoot. Right. You know, there's always something that's going to be wrong. Right. And if the director's like, you know, this is a problem, and then he just walks away. Right. Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
No, homie, you're the director.
You know, like,
get back in there.
Even if the director doesn't have a solution, he points out the problem, and you open invitation to, like, okay, how are we going to do this? Yeah. And then everyone feels free to collaborate. But I'm not a fan of just being, there's a problem, you know, like. No. Or
throwing the baby out with the bathwater either.
I don't know what that means. It's a very southern term that I hear people say all the time.
It's well, all right, after a bath, the water's dirty, so you throw the whole bath out, but the baby's in there. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
What? Is that what that means?
Yes. Yeah, don't throw out the important thing because the other thing is dirty. Yeah. Throw out the dirty thing after the baby's clean. Don't throw out the dirty thing before the baby is clean, because that's the baby. Clean the baby.
This is so confusing.
Babies are important.
I'm glad I know what that means now, though.
Yeah, I don't think I explained it right, but hey,
But yeah,
I explained some other things right this episode. So
if you have a problem, you'll
all solve it. Check out my hook while the DJ revolves it.
Gosh,
I'm so sorry.
I actually popped up in my
sorry.
mind too.
I saw you doing it. And I'm like, got it.
Wow, you didn't skip a beat on that. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Caleb, where can they find our podcast?
I
feel like you were about to say something really profound, and I just totally. I'm so sorry.
You just threw it out the door. What I was gonna say is, if you have a problem, don't be quick to point out.
Mm-hmm.
Watch your attitude. Be quick to point out and open to dialogue.
Right. Absolutely.
A dumb person is someone who is judgmental but does not accept dialogue on that thing. If that makes sense. Now I sound dumb. But, it's really just flipped around.
The irony about this. Dumb person, no, we're
it
good.
It made sense in my head, but I understand that probably didn't make sense to you. Let's just move on.
Well, if people we're interested in everybody's thoughts on this too, because I think this is an opportunity that all of us need to be talking that does guide into action, but it's important to be incarnational in our communities, to be a part of our communities, and to give them truth and grace. If there's any take or any big points of this, it's that truth and grace, and be in the community to be Christ in the community, just as Christ came to our community to be with us. But we want your thoughts, and then that can be done by going to our Instagram or Facebook page at Nobody Special Podcast, by commenting on our YouTube, by sending us a message, an email, or by going to our webpage, thegospeloutpost.com/nobodyspecial, and either asking us a question about this, about anything else, or just to say hi. There's a form at the bottom of the page.
Yes.
Caleb, where else can they find our podcast if they're interested? Maybe this is their first episode and they made it to this far.
Yeah.
Congrats.
You can find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, except for SoundCloud, and then Spotify, iTunes, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's where you can find us.
Absolutely. So, well, Caleb, I actually think this has been a very productive conversation, and I've enjoyed it a ton.
Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Wow.
I know.
Thanks.
I'm being so pleasant
I'm
tonight.
not going to return the compliment.
You never do. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. I'm Danny.
And I'm Caleb.
And we are
Nobody Special.